This is The Real Story from the BBC World Service with me, Celia Hatton. Over the next hour, we'll be asking the question, is social media killing elections? The most notorious recent example is, of course, Russian interference in the election that brought Donald Trump to power in the US in 2016, for which the evidence is overwhelming. But in this program, we want to look at other elections around the world, from Nigeria to India. And let's start our program with one that's just happened, one particularly colourful, particularly divisive election. It took place in Indonesia. And to help set the scene, I caught up with the BBC's longtime Indonesia editor, Rebecca Henschke.
Social media is huge in Indonesia. And it's not just young people who are using it. It's housewives, it's professionals, it's your grandma. Our office lady was the biggest user of social media during the campaign and was always sending us the latest that she was getting from all these wonderful, reliable sources.
You're saying reliable and putting that in finger quotation marks.
That's right, because social media is so untamed, isn't it? And in Indonesia, so we're basically, Jakarta is one of the Twitter capitals in the world. People use it like a chat app. So they'll reply to comments, very personal stuff is put on Twitter. And then you've got Facebook. And now increasingly, of course, it's all about Instagram and Instagram stories. So social media is huge in Indonesia, and it was huge in this election.
Okay, and it was played out in social media. Do you have any examples?
It was played out on social media, and not just like played out as in campaign videos. What really happened was fake news, fake campaigns on social media. So there's one here that shows that President Joko Widodo is actually Chinese, that his parents were Chinese and that he was the descendant of Chinese.
And that's untrue.
It's untrue. He's not. He's Javanese. Maybe he has some heritage, but nobody knows.
Okay,
but
I see you're swiping through your phone. It looks like you've got a lot of examples.
Yeah, there are a lot of examples. So a lot of it was around the Chinese influence because President Joko Widodo is doing a lot of deals with China to build infrastructure. From the Prabowo side, it was all about his human rights allegations. There's the fact that he had a huge debt, which he didn't. And then this wonderful one here that I'll show you. That's a Facebook post that went viral that shows Prabowo's image in a kind of White House setting.
It's a portrait that's being hung on a wall.
It's like a kind of American figure.
It looks like McCain to me, maybe, but the U.S. presidential flag is also behind. It's very confusing. It's obviously a faked image.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
But then you look at it and that was shared like almost 500 times. It's got a lot of comments. So these sort of things were floating around.
Did anybody try to stop this?
They did. Both teams intensively tried to stop it, but they were also intensively involved in it. I think it's important to say that this is not just rogue people making up things. A lot of investigations that we've got involved in and also other media show that both teams set up basically fake news teams.
Is there any proof that all of this content really affected the outcome?
I think it's really hard to tell, but there were some pretty extraordinary surveys that showed at one point there was around 40% of people who were asked questions thought that Jokowi was a Christian, he's a Muslim, and that he was a communist. So it was affecting people's ideas. And most people who supported President Joko Widodo did think that Prabowo was accused and convicted of human rights abuses. Well, in fact, he's never been convicted. So I think it did really affect. But I think what happened is, like often happens, people stayed within their social media bubble. But what I think that we can take from this election, though, is that it definitely made Indonesia a more divisive society. And so the impact of this election is much bigger than who won.
Well, there you have it. Intrigue surrounding the Indonesian election. But this country isn't an isolated case. As I said before, social media is affecting modern elections all over the world, from the big presidential campaigns, like we've heard about in Indonesia, to local contests. Later in the program, you'll hear about one case from the midterm elections in the United States when campaign workers had to learn how to deal with threats posed by social media, even making honeypot traps to trick potential hackers. But is this all a bit too alarmist? Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter can make political candidates more accountable too, among other things. Few countries will want to shut down their social media platforms entirely. We'll examine solutions too. But for now, let me introduce our guest this hour.